now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, the Russian Federation did not take the path of breaching consensus on the document that was adopted. We were guided by the established practice of unanimous reaching of agreement on texts which pertain to cooperation between the United Nations and regional organizations. At the same time, we cannot overlook the following fact: the fact that negotiations on the content of the document have left an unpleasant aftertaste. And, by the way, this is not merely the view of our colleagues in New York, but also the view of our colleagues in Strasbourg, who were engaged in drawing up the initial draft. We wish to dot all the I's. On 28th of February marked the 25th anniversary of the entry of the Russian Federation into the Council of Europe. This event transformed the regional body into an authentically pan-European organization, an organization where dialogue on a wide-ranging agenda is developed. The agenda includes counterterrorism, protection of human rights, social policies, healthcare, and issues pertaining to culture, youth, and athletics matters. Insofar as the question of intergovernment discussions at the regional level in Strasbourg and at the global level in New York often dovetail, insofar as that is the case, cooperation between the two organizations on priorities can prove useful. It is self-evident that the joint priorities can only be determined together. This means that the relevant resolutions should be genuinely consensual in nature, and these resolutions should reflect the approaches of all interested states. And yet, the coordinators of work on the draft, for some reason, decided that they are entitled to disregard the views of other states, including members of the Council of Europe. This specifically pertains to the imposition of controversial approaches to the questions of promotion of human rights, ensuring gender equality, and preventing violence against women. We are particularly surprised at the fact that the sponsors decided not to incorporate a key principle of international cooperation in the document, that principle being that any assistance to states can be rendered exclusively with the consent of the host state. This is the bedrock of all of the work of the United Nations. We are similarly dismayed at the fact that in the context of global efforts to combat the pandemic, the text of the resolution fails to mention the call of the Secretary General dating 23 March 2020 to halt unilateral sanctions. This is an approach which is telling in terms of reflecting the genuine position of those who proclaim themselves to be leaders in international humanitarian assistance. We believe that the paragraphs on the merits of the regional organization in combating intolerance are not fully in line with reality. And this includes paragraphs on ensuring the rights of ethnic minorities and ensuring freedom for mass information outlets. There is still a great deal of work to be done in these regards. And in the Baltic countries, in Ukraine, and in a number of other Eastern European countries, the situation is, to be frank, verging on disastrous. People have been stripped of the right to engage in and to be educated in their maternal language, Russian, and the disgraceful phenomenon of statelessness has not been eradicated. Inconvenient television channels are being shuttered. The work of news agencies is being stymied. There are many proliferating instances of oppression and attacks targeting inconvenient journalists. People are subject to discrimination on linguistic and national characteristics. And incidentally, in the absence of a condemnation from regional structures, the above-mentioned states continuously rubber stamp more and more discriminatory laws. The most recent example is as follows. In January, a Ukrainian legal norm from 2019 entered into force on ensuring the functioning of the Ukrainian language as a state language, pursuant to which legal norm Russian language use in public areas is now a punishable offense. clearly, the Council of Europe has a long way to go before being in a position to share its experience on these matters with the United Nations. Nor can we support the intent to promote the Council of Europe Convention on Countering Cybercrime, that is the so-called Budapest Convention. This document has a dangerous loophole, which enables foreign powers to encroach upon the digital sovereignty of states through cross-border access to national data. Instead, we would be well advised to focus efforts on drafting a comprehensive consensual document on cybersecurity. The specific Russian proposals in this regard are well known. We trust that on the basis of the tense negotiations that have been concluded, the proper conclusions will be drawn. And we trust that in future, the sponsors of the draft resolutions on this question will seek common ground and will heed the views of all member states of both organizations, including during the preparation stage of documents in Strasbourg. Thank you.
Thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation.